What's up? Welcome to the stack. Welcome back. If you've been here before, I'm neonmushroom, and today we've got more EDH Commander gameplay for you guys. And today's game is going to be interesting. It needs a little bit of a explanation for some of you who have been following the channel for at least like the last month. We did a budget game with these like interviews and like kind of just open editing. It was more than just the game because we want something interesting for people to watch, especially when a set comes out. These were done with budget games. We played like Lathril, Magda, Firja, and Tergrid, and they were all on a $100 budget. This was not the original plan. We wanted to play these decks with no budget for the big game with the interviews and all that junk, and it didn't work out because the power levels weren't as balanced as we wanted them to be. However, we recorded some games with these high budget, extremely, off the wall, not CEDH, but heavily optimized builds. And today's game is one of those. I thought it was a really cool game. You guys will see what I'm talking about. That said, that's all you should need to know. So let's go take a look at who's playing, what they're playing. You kind of already know what they're playing. And what opening hands they decided to keep, as well as the normal upkeep stuff.
As always, if you like this show or any of our other shows on YouTube, liking, sharing, and subscribing helps us out immensely. If you like our content and don't mind that extra mile, you can always support us over on Patreon, over at patreon.com/mtg the stack.
Like Ryan Bauer. I just wanted an excuse to use his voice.
So I used the patron shout out.
Comment down below any of your thoughts and feelings, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Alright, first up we've got Calvin playing Firja, Judge of Valor, or the Fridge for short. This is going to be a mid-range deck that wants to use Firja as a powerful farming piece right out of the command zone, and it wants to eventually assemble a win using something like Heliod Suncrowned and Walking Ballista, or Lethal Vapors and Teferi's Protection. Calvin's going to keep a 7-card hand, including a Chrome Mox, a Fellowar Stone, a Heliod Suncrowned, Grand Abolisher, Cavern of Souls, Isolated Chapel, and a Plains. Then we have Ajdin playing Tergrid, God of Fright, and he's built this deck to be a very rude value build that wants to abuse Tergrid's static ability to gain control of all of his opponent's permanents that have been sacrificed, and eventually win the game using the backside of Tergrid in conjunction with a infinite mana engine like Pilapala, Necrotic Ooze, and Palladium Mirror. Ajdin has also opted to keep a 7-card hand, including a Death Cloud, a Gauntlet of Power, 4 Swamps, and an Ancient Tomb. Next up, we have Guy Scott playing Magda, Brazen, Outlaw, and this is a deck that has absolutely no interest in playing fairly. It wants to combo by generating a bunch of treasures with cards like Magda, Brazen, Outlaw, and Dockside Extortionist, and then it wants to use Magda to go tutor up a combo straight out of the library, like Cloudstone Curio and Terror of the Peaks. Guy has also opted to keep a 7-card hand with a Gyre Reach Sanitarium, 2 Snow-Covered Mountains, a Pyrokinesis, a Goblin Matron, Galvanic Blast, and a Sensei's Divining Top. Finally, we have me playing Lathril, Blade of the Elves. This is going to be your typical Elf Ball style build, with the added bonus of playing black so we can make our deck more consistent by playing tutors. This deck wants to win with the normal usual suspects out of elf builds like Critterhoof Behemoth, plus if we can flood the board and go wide enough, we can use Lathril's activated ability to win the game as well. I've also decided to keep a 7-card hand, including a Coat of Arms, Seeker of Skybreak, Gnarlroot Trapper, Deathrite Shaman, a Verdant Catacombs, and 2 Snow-Covered Forests.
Card game! Beep, bop, boop, fort. 1, 2, 3, flip! Oh my god! She's loyal.
Calvin won card game, so he gets to start by drawing a card, and he'll play a basic Plains as his land for turn. Then he'll play a Chrome Mox, exiling a Grand Abolisher to it so it taps for white, and he'll tap out for a Fellwar Stone and pass the turn to Ajdin. Ajdin will just draw his card for turn, play a basic Swamp, and pass right to Guy, who's going to play a basic Snow-Covered Mountain, tap it for red, and then play a Sensei's Divining Top, and pass the turn to me. I'll draw my card for turn, I'm going to play a Verdant Catacombs, fetching, dropping down to 39, and I'm going to go search up an Overgrown Tomb and shock it into play, dropping to 37. Then I'll tap for black, and I'm going to cast a Gnarlroot Trapper. With nothing else, I'll just pass the turn back to Calvin. He'll untap and draw a card, and in his first main phase, he'll drop Isolated Chapel as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap for 3 mana and cast Heliod Suncrowned, and I'll use his last land to cast a Soul Warden. With nothing else, he's just going to pass the turn to Ajdin, who will draw his card, and then in his first main phase, he's going to play a second Swamp, and just pass the turn right back to Guy. Guy will untap, draw a card, play a Snow-Covered Mountain, and then he's going to tap for 2 mana in order to cast his commander, Magda, Brazen, Outlaw. With nothing else, we'll pass the turn back to me. I'll untap and draw a card for turn and play a Snow-Covered Forest. Then I'll tap my Gnarlroot Trapper for mana, losing 1 life and going down to 36 in order to cast Deathrite Shaman. After that, I'll use all of my remaining mana, and I'm going to cast a Seeker of Skybreak. With nothing else, I'll just pass the turn back to Calvin. Calvin will untap and draw his card for turn, and then he's going to play a basic Swamp as his land for turn. He'll tap out to cast his commander, Firja, Judge of Valor. That's going to trigger the Soul Warden, so he's going to gain a life, and then the Heliod is going to let him put a counter on the Soul Warden. After that point, he'll just pass the turn to Ajdin, who will draw and play Ancient Tomb as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap for 1 black, and he's going to cast a Mana Vault. Once that's in play, he's going to tap the Mana Vault for 3 colorless mana, and the Ancient Tomb for 2, dropping down to 38, and he's going to play Gauntlet of Power, naming black. After that, he's just going to pass the turn back to Guy, who untaps and draws his card for turn, and drops an Ancient Tomb of his own. Then he's going to tap for 3 mana, losing 2 life, to play Goblin Matron. That's going to let him search his deck for a goblin, and in this case, he'll get Dockside Extortionist and add it to his hand. After that, he'll head into combat and attack Ajdin for 2 with Magda. This triggers Magda, and he makes a treasure. Ajdin takes the damage, and then Guy's going to tap for 2 mana using the treasure to cast Dockside Extortionist, and he's going to make 5 treasures. With nothing else, he'll pass the turn to me, and I'll untap, draw, play a snow-covered forest as my land for turn. Then I'm going to tap for 4 mana, losing a life to the Gnarlroot Trapper, and I'll play Lathril, Blade of the Elves. Then I'll head into combat, and I will attack Calvin with my Deathrite Shaman. He has no blocker, so he drops down to 40, and we move to Calvin's turn, where he'll draw and head straight into combat. He'll turn his commander sideways at Guy, and the Soul Warden sideways at Ajdin, and before we go to damage, Calvin reminds us that there's a Gauntlet of Power in play, so he should have taken 2 off of the Deathrite Shaman. After that, we go to damage, they take their pain, Calvin gains some life off lifelink, triggering Heliod, putting a counter on the Soul Warden, and we'll go to Ajdin's turn. Ajdin's going to pay 4 to untap the Mana Vault, and then he'll draw his card for turn, and play another basic Swamp as his land for turn. After that, he's going to tap for 4 mana, and he's going to cast the backside of Tergrid, Tergrid's Lantern. With nothing else, he'll simply pass the turn to Guy, where he'll untap and draw his card for turn. Then he's going to tap for 1 red and cast Gamble. This will let him search his library for any card. In this case, he wants to grab a copy of Karn the Great Creator and add it to his hand.
Cool.
Play land for turn.
Hold on.
Wait a minute. How does Gamble work?
How the fuck does Gamble work, bitch? Put that land back in your hand.
1 red mana demonic tutor.
Pass me your hand.
Here you go. I just got so excited. You called
I
it.
feel you. Is that the one?
Yeah, it was. You little bitch.
After having the worst possible outcome from Gamble, he's finally allowed to play his Snow-Covered Mountain as his land for turn, and then he's going to activate Magda. That's going to allow him to search his library for an artifact or dragon, and in this case, he'll get a Cloudstone Curio. Once that's in play, he's going to go ahead and float 3 mana using the Ancient Tomb, and I'll drop to 33. He's going to use 2 of it to play Dwarven Miner, which triggers Cloudstone Curio, and he's going to pick up his Dockside Extortionist. Now he's going to use the floating mana in conjunction with the red from his land in order to play Dockside Extortionist, which enters and triggers the Cloudstone Curio. This is going to have him bounce in the Dwarven Miner, then the Dockside will trigger, and he's going to go ahead and make 5 treasure tokens. After that, he's going to use some of those treasure tokens to play the Dwarven Miner again, triggering the Cloudstone, and with that, he's going to bounce his Dockside Extortionist.
I'll loop this until you get infinite mana, right?
Boom.
And infinite treasures.
Yeah, so I'll have infinite treasures. So from here, I can use those treasures.
What a commander.
Set up, establish infinite treasures, and then we can just shortcut this by getting...
Yikes.
Tear the Peaks.
Oh, that one. That one does it too.
Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Tear the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target.
Don't you have the nice shiny one now?
I do, but I don't want to put it in this proxy deck because it can
Obviously.
get thrown away.
Obviously.
So, using Infinite Treasures, this comes into play. Trigger Tear the Peaks. Nothing happens there. Trigger Cloudstone Curio. Put Dockside back in my hand. Using my Infinite Treasure. Cast Dockside Extortionist. Trigger Cloudstone Curio. Put Tear the Peaks back in my hand.
That was absolutely brutal. We got on turn 4 by a mono red deck nonetheless. I'd like to take a minute to wrap up the game in a game review style, but instead of doing it in order from the least impactful deck to the most impactful deck, I'm just going to write it off and say Ajdin and I weren't very impactful at all because Ajdin saw 4 turns, I saw 3, and that's typically not enough time for us to get our wheels spinning. We didn't do much of anything worth noting. Calvin, he did quite a bit. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough, but he was able to assemble half of the combo of the Walking Ballista and Heliod Suncrown, so that could have been very good. He accelerated his mana very quickly too, but it wasn't even close to good enough. It was probably like Ajdin. No, I was probably the least impactful. Maybe it was Ajdin. Ajdin was the least impactful. I was the second least impactful. Then there was Calvin, and then there's Guy. And let's just talk about what Guy did so we can, I don't know. I guess I'll try to explain the combo a little bit. It was brutal. For anyone who, this game is super quick, and it's because a lot of you probably noticed the delta and power levels between like our decks and Guy's deck were fairly large. That's why this didn't see like any big edited game for the set release like we did with the budget decks of the same names. But what had happened was he was able to use the Dockside Extortionist to make 5 treasure tokens, and with those 5 treasure tokens he can use Magda's ability. So use Magda's ability to sacrifice all 5 and go get an artifact. In this case it was Cloudstone Curio, which has the ability of whenever you play a permanent that's not a land or artifact, I believe, you can bounce a permanent of the same type that's not the same one you just played. So what that means is that if he plays his Dockside Extortionist and he has 5 treasures, and then he plays anything else, in this case a Dwarven Miner, he can bounce his Dockside Extortionist. And then he plays it again, making more treasures, bouncing the Dwarven Miner, using the Cloudstone Curio, and he can keep that up, generating, treasures every time he does it. And since he's making 5, he's treasure positive, so he goes infinite. Once he's infinite, he can use Magda to go get his, in this case, he got the Tyrant of the Peaks, I think is the name of the card, Terror of the Peaks. And that just kills us while he's doing that little Cloudstone Curio bouncing your creatures thing. Interesting note, he actually tried to kill us in another way. I think he was trying to flex on us when he gambled for the Karn, Great Creator, and he discarded it because he forgot you're supposed to discard off gamble. How good would a 1 red mana demonic tutor be? That Karn the Great Creator turns off all artifacts from your opponents, and he had 5 treasures. So he could have used those 5 treasures to go get Mycosynth Lattice, turning all of our cards into artifacts and knocking us out of the game. It would have been the same thing. That just means he could have gone for 2 separate combos that turn, and when one didn't work, he just went for the other one. It was absolutely absurd. That deck's very powerful. Look forward to seeing more of that deck. We found out that there's a few decks we have that kind of keep up with it in power level, so we're trying to adjust and play those pods accordingly. But yeah, that's why this deck didn't get played for our big set release video that we did. I'll link that in the description if you guys want to see budget versions of these builds, which I thought they were really cool. Other than that, that's all I have for you guys as far as the game goes today. Just look forward to like some announcements. We've got some stuff we want to talk about because we hit 5,000 subs, and that means a few things we wanted to do, some, celebratory stuff. So just keep your ear out. And if you're watching this late, I just wanted to let everybody know that isn't already watching them, that on Sundays we stream gameplay for about 2.5 to 3 hours. So if you haven't been coming in on that, everyone that comes in seems to be enjoying themselves, and we're really enjoying interacting with you guys, the community, so we appreciate that. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.